He slumped forward. Jackie eased him back up. She was looking him right in the face when he was hitting approximately the right temple by that frangible or exploding bullet that blew open the skull flap and blew his brains out the back of his already weakened cranium with such force that when they hit motorcycle officer Bobby Hargis there, he initially thought he himself had been shot. It was that forceful. And so they combined the two. And what Jack did after that was to slump to the left. In other words, initially slumped forward. And this is, of course, what got Dan Rather in trouble, because he'd actually been there Saturday morning when Zapruder showed the film. He got rushed out and said Jack, had gone forward, which was true of the original film. But when Robert Groden eventually got it on the Geraldo's program in 1975, it of course had been edited and you didn't have anything of the slumping forward. You only had the violent back into the left. No one in Dealey Plaza observed a violent back into the left because he simply slumped to the left. They took out too many frames. They took out so many frames that you got this violent back into the left motion that was not a part of the original sequence. And here indeed, and this was, frankly, these two images are from Josiah Thompson's 6 Seconds in Dallas, published in 1967. This was the best part of his book. It was a scientific, completely objective, even mathematically precise proof of at least two shots, one from behind, another from in front, conclusively establishing the existence of at least two shooters and therefore of a conspiracy. As we began to approach the 50th, and I had many encounters with Josiah Thompson, he began backing away from any evidence of conspiracy in his book. And it was evident to me, and I actually published this, that he was going to renounce conspiracy on the eve of the 50th, which was supposed to mean that even the conspiracy theorists have given it up, see. He did it, the first of what were going to be 20, 30, 40, 50 short little interviews with a very famous filmmaker that were being promoted by the New York Times. And he was talking about Umbrella Man and trying to say it was all totally innocuous and it had to do with Dean Acheson, or it had something to do with appeasement, which it had nothing to do. But I mean, here was Tink, saying you got to be careful because even something that looks suspicious may have an innocuous explanation. And I just raked him over the coals in that in an article entitled JFK, the CIA and the New York Times, which, check it out. I mean, they ceased. I think they saw that they were actually losing ground because they were giving opportunities for critiques, and I was seizing them. So they discontinued what was going to be an ongoing series of interviews with this famous filmmaker, with Josiah Thompson. But it was clear what he was doing, clear to me, so I explained it all to the public. Now, meanwhile, David Lifton had gone up to Caltech and taken photographs of these frames, 311, 12, 13 through 17 and all that, to Richard Feynman, the most famous physicist in the world. And Feynman, genius that he is, simply took a ruler and started, these were big prints, simply took a ruler and started measuring, and he himself discovered the double hit right there in the frames that David Lifton had taken to him. So even if Josiah were supposed to be disavowing his double hit theory from his book, I say again, by far the best part, Richard Feynman had independently established it. I mean, David Lifton did some absolutely brilliant research, and I regard my 3 collections of expert studies, Assassination Science 1998, Murder in Dealey Plaza 2000, The Great Zapruder Film Hoax 2003, as sequels to David Lifton's best evidence. Now, with regard to the head wound, they blacked out the head wound in early frames. They altered the x-rays to prove that it didn't exist. But when I reviewed later frames, I found it in frame 374. In other words, a reason they were so fixated on these early frames, maybe they overlooked something, and I proved to be right. Here you take a look. This is 317, and you see that the back of the head is blacked out. In fact, it's abnormally blacked out. Judith has friends in Hollywood who are film restoration experts. At one point, I believe they were going to participate here and explain the results of their research, where they obtained the forensic copy of the Zapruder film from the National Archives. I've actually, Sidney Wilkerson is the person who's been in charge of this effort. I've actually visited their studio. I saw the film they were dealing with. It was stunningly clear and pristine. And they were all shocked by the amateurish way in which this wound had been blacked out. It appears they blew up the frame. They actually painted it. I mean, painted it out in black, and then shrunk the frame back and then reshot the sequence. That it was that level of crudity. But here you can see in frame 374 what I discovered. You can actually see the blowout. Now you see why I mentioned that skull flap, because you notice that pink extension on the right? That's not its ear, that's that skull flap that was blown open. But the wound itself, of course, is the blue-gray area, right? Remember how often they refer to brains as gray matter? Well, there's a reason for that, because it's the color that it is observed to be during surgery. Now here's some comparison of a couple of earlier frames with frame 374. Now, more than 60 witnesses reported seeing the limousine come to a halt. Some said they saw it slow dramatically. Others said they saw it come to a complete halt, where it slowed dramatically as it came to a complete halt. And the stop was such an obvious indication of Secret Service complicity, it had to be taken out. Here we get some of the reports, and I would read it if I can read